this topic is so important because of the fact that, obviously not just for the pool industry, every industry is having issues with labor shortages and not being able to find quality people to work for them. Just the restaurants in your area. I don't know about you guys, but if you look at the restaurants in your area, it seems like there's always an issue with, trying to get people to work in restaurants or anything else. So this is a really great topic. I'm excited about it for the pool industry because Rolande and Kristyne, you're not real familiar with the type of jobs that are available out there, but there's lots of opportunities, really great opportunities for different types of positions, whether it be engineering or construction or building or design. There's lots of different types of jobs out there that would be a great fit, I think, for the skills that veterans are coming out with. And it's not just a basic job. It's stuff that's really important and kind of exciting stuff. So it's exciting for me to talk about this topic. We have 5 people in so far, and we're going to wait a little bit longer. Again, thank you for joining us. Our speakers today, myself, of course, but we have Rolande Sumner, who's a veteran retention expert. She's also a coach for veterans who are coming out and, transitioning to a civilian life. She's a coach for them and helps them along the way, which I really respect. But she's here to talk about her retention expert, the things that's going to help you guys actually find labor for you. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, Rolande? What your background is? I'd love to hear about that.
So thank you for having me, Michelle. I am an Army National Guard veteran. I spent the last half of my career as an active Guard Reserve or AGR soldier. It's a hybrid between regular Army and National Guard. You get the both of best worlds. And my main job was human resources management. When I got out of the military, the transition was really rough. I lost my job within the first 2 months. I started my own skincare business, and then I went back to work, and that wasn't great. And then I started a coaching firm. And in my experience and in my studies, I've learned that there were certain things that would really help businesses retain their veterans once they were hired. Organizations spend millions of dollars on recruitment, but few put in the effort to learn how to retain their veterans. And so that's where I come in to help out. So today I'm going to give you some suggestions on how to keep your veterans, and these suggestions can be used for all of your employees.
Absolutely. I love that. Thank you. I appreciate that. And then we have Kristyne Thomas, who is a recruiting expert. She works with Talents Ascend and Veterans Ascend. She's our business communications person. And tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your background, Kristyne?
Hi, thank you for having me. So it's Kristyne Thomas, and fun fact, I actually worked for a pool company when I was in high school. I didn't do the pool cleaning services, but I cleaned the building and helped with the bookkeeping. So that's kind of funny how it came back around in my life some point later. Yes. And I was laughing with Rolande because I too was Army National Guard, and the last years of my National Guard career were also, I wasn't AGR, but I was ADOS, which is Active Duty Operational Support Orders. So it's pretty similar to AGR, except that my orders can get cut at any time. So that was always fun. But I was a paralegal in the Army, and I did that for about 8 years, and cross-trained in the HR community as well. And similar story, you get out and you kind of fumble around a little bit while you try to figure out what's next for you. And I actually ended up getting into career coaching for veterans. Was like my first my big kid job is what I call it. Like outside of the military, this is my first big kid job. And then I have been working in the veteran community ever since. And I started with Veterans Ascend and Talents Ascend earlier this year with doing business communications for them. So essentially any employers who have questions about our programs, I'm here to liaison between them and the people who are out recruiting the veterans.
Nice. Perfect. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And for those of you who, I don't know why it didn't go down. So next slide. I don't know what I did wrong there. For those of you who don't already know me, I am Michelle Kavanaugh. I was the Mission Development Director at the National Swimming Pool Foundation for 14 years, and then I became the Executive Director of the California Pool and Spa Association for 2 years. and just went out on my own last year. So this is my second year in business as a coach. I'm really a strategist. I work with pool service guys and builders to help them in any way that they need based on what their issues are and the problems they're having. And I want to help them succeed. I have a big heart for this industry because I was a single mom for most of my career at the National Swimming Pool Foundation with a child who had special needs. And this industry surrounded me with love and support. And times when I needed to focus on my family and things like that, this industry really surrounded me with love and support, like I said. And because of that, it's my goal to give back to you. And that's really important to me. That's where my heart is. And education is big for me. And that's why I work with Watershape University. They are a client of mine. I do their social media as well as their event planning. And I know the folks, Lauren and Dave and Bill and all of them from the National Swimming Pool Foundation when they were at Genesis. So we're buddies from back in the day. I really support them and believe in what they're doing. And again, education is my passion, and that's why I'm working with them. So happy to be here. This is a topic I brought to the table because I really thought that this is something when I go to all the Facebook pages and the groups and things like that, we're seeing people talk about their issues with hiring and all of that. This may not be the prime time to hire, but it doesn't matter because this is going to help you if you're going to hire for next year or you're planning even a year in advance. I really feel like you should be planning ahead. And this is a great way for you to be on the front end of this hiring process with this webinar today. I always want to thank the engagement partners, the corporate engagement partners with Watershape, because without them, they would not be able to do what they need to do to provide all the education and go to all the shows and do all of that for all of you out there. So I thank you to all of the engagement partners. And then the media team, these are people that are, all the shows and the media, the people that are supporting us. We go to a lot of shows. I do have a slide at the end that will show all the upcoming events we're going to and the education that we're going to have. So I will look forward to that at the end of this. But again, we think that we try to go to every show where there's going to be builders and service guys at those particular shows. So that's really important to us to be there and to not only have courses before, after the pre-conference or post-conference, but to have sessions within those shows. An hour or 2 hour long sessions that really touch on topics, whether it be hydraulics, engineering, construction, design. We do all of that at these particular shows. So we look forward to seeing you in the future. So let's talk about our learning objectives for today. We're going to talk about the problem, which I'm sure many of you are already aware of, the problem with hiring and labor. We're going to talk about marketing and how to attract the veteran talent, recruiting and hiring veteran talent like a pro, engaging and retaining your veteran new hire, and the cost of not getting it right, and then some Q&A at the end. I may, when someone else is talking, look in the chat window. There's a chat window or a question box. You're more than welcome to put information in there or a question in there, and I'll probably review that when Rolanda and Kristyne are talking during this session. So feel free to add that. If not, we'll certainly touch on it at the end. Do you have anything else to add, Rolanda or Kristyne, before we get started?
No, I'm ready to get started.
Okay, perfect.
Let's do it.
Go ahead. Oh, good. Let's talk about the problem. As you know, you're already aware of the problem. I just want to reinforce a couple of things. Obviously, what's on average is a 30 to 40% increase in demand for the pool industry because of, or building pools because of the pandemic. Because of the fact that everybody, was stuck in their house and in their household area, they all started, upgrading and they started upgrading their backyards. And because of that, there was a demand for pools. And again, on average, it's about a 30 to 40% increase demand for pool bills. And so that created this problem. Not only were we in the pandemic, it was a great thing for us. We were essential workers, according to a lot of states, thank goodness. But the issue is, the labor shortage problem and then the demand rising at the same time was the big problem for us. Obviously, we are having our own issue, but then we're competing because it's a global scale with this labor shortage of things that are happening. We're also not just competing with the builder, in the next county. We're now competing with everybody else, all the other construction companies and builders or contractors. We're competing with them as well. So the big problem we've been having is just that increased demand, and then of course the supply issues were even worse in regards to the predicament that we were in and are in. And then the training and education side too is also important. Now, there hasn't been a lot of online courses in the past. Now, and the nice thing about having online courses is you can teach the basics. Obviously, we at Watershape University are big believers that you come to shows and events to get to the higher level of training. But because they've been putting all the basic construction stuff online now, you can actually get training and education online. That hasn't been big in this industry in the past, but there are more options out there for you now. And the construction, essential construction 2111, which Watershape University offers, you can get on their website at any time and you can take that. So the nice thing is there was a problem with being able to get training and education for your team, but it's getting easier and easier to do that. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then the retaining workers part, you have a lot of competition, especially on the pool service side. You know, you train people and then they just go start their own pool service company because it's such an easy entry to that particular market. It's just easy to get. You get a truck, you get some stuff, and you go on your way. That's been a big issue as well. Not as big for pool builders, but again, you're competing with other people. And if you don't treat your employees in the way that they are satisfied, then they will move on and go to another company to work. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit more detail as well. But really the goal here is to, with the labor shortage, how can you really bring in some great talent? And we'll talk a little bit about the skills. I think you guys will talk about that, really the skills that veterans are coming out with, and just the commitment and dedication and really hardworking values that they have are something that we all aspire to have in our companies. And so that's something that I think is a great fit. I keep hitting the wrong button, that's why it gets bigger. So let's talk about using marketing to attract your talent. So I'm big on the whole marketing side of things and the copy that you use. I just attended a session last week, or a conference last week, where Dr. John Gray, who wrote the book Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, he was talking about relationships, but he was just talking about the way men and women communicate. And out of that, the big topic is, in all the years of therapy that he's done with relations, with couples, is that men are looking for appreciation. Women are usually looking for security, men are looking for appreciation. I think in our kind of male-dominated industry here, that's important to remember. And it's big for me that you use different copy and, use your website and your social media to really talk about your company, being authentic to yourself and your why. So a lot of us don't do that. We just put up a website, we just throw some stuff on it, and we're not really being authentic to our values and our beliefs and our company culture and the why that we're in business. I really believe that you need to have your why out, not just for veterans these days. I really believe the millennial generation has really brought that to the forefront. If you're not being authentic in your why and why you're in business, then you're not really going to connect with people. Because believe it or not, people are out there looking at your website, whether you want them to or not, and they're looking at that to determine information. They're trying to decide about your company. If they want to work with your company, if they want to do business with your company, if they want to buy your product or service, they are looking at your website. So I think it's really important on your website and the things that you're posting on social media that you're really being authentic to what you're trying to attract to yourself. Because if you're not doing that and you're not being authentic to you and why, then you're going to turn some people off. And I think in this regard, when you're really having issues, if you're really trying to find good people to work for you, that's important. And being an employer of choice, that is it's all encompassing, right? Because your brand, the company culture that you're putting out there in your social media and other places, the people that you're showing on your website, the family environment that you're creating, the values and the beliefs and things that you're putting out there, all of that, ethics. And this really, I think, and you guys can, tell me if I'm wrong, Rolanda, but that really does respond to the veteran community, in my opinion. I think that they do a lot of things based on values and beliefs and a work ethic. And I think that if you don't have that, then you're doing a disservice to trying to recruit this type of person, I believe.
What we're looking for is just people being genuine. We can smell fake. So if you say that you are veteran friendly or that you want to hire veterans, and then we show up to an interview, or we walk in on our first day and it doesn't seem like you care, then we're going to leave. There's a lot of people who want to exploit veterans because it looks good. There's tax breaks associated with it and such, but we can smell fake. If you're not genuinely wanting to be a part of the veteran community or as a supporter, not only will you lose one employee, word spreads in our community, and you can lose a lot of your business.
That makes sense. Absolutely. I think too that the other thing that we're missing out on is really just trying to raise our employees up or elevate them as leaders or as giving them more responsibility and opportunities to grow within your company. I've talked to a lot of, especially on the pool service side, where I feel like they're afraid that they're going to lose employees to, you know, them starting their own business. So they tend not to do as much training as they would, or they do it themselves. And I'm not suggesting doing it yourself is wrong, but what I am suggesting is you're going to lose them anyway if you don't show them any kind of, don't give them any kind of opportunity to grow and to learn. Because all of us are looking for career opportunities. We're all trying to grow and learn, right? And take and get the next level of whatever we're trying to accomplish in our careers and before we retire. So if you're not going to provide that, they're going to leave anyway and go to another company that is going to provide that. If you do give them training, the way I look at it is if I give them training and they grow and elevate and they go on and start their own business, then you've helped somebody to go out and move on their way and to elevate. And I think you should feel good about that. It still stinks. Don't get me wrong. It's not something you want to happen, but I think you're still then contributing to the success of another individual. And if they go on and they become successful themselves, then you've helped that person do that. But I think it's really important that you're out there getting, you know, helping them grow and elevate themselves. And that is something that you want to focus on here. And, you know, we'll talk about the grants grant, which is something Watershed University provides on the next slide, but that is an area where you can potentially get some funding to help educate. A lot of these shows that you can go to, you can get, you know, with your pass to go to the show, there's a ton of free education there. Lots of seminars that are technical in nature, business in nature, any of those types of things, hands-on. You can go to the booth and get hands-on training by the manufacturers who have their products there and their equipment. So there is actual training at a show as well. If you don't send them to a particular class, there's some good training at those shows. So I highly encourage, you know, you to train your employees by taking them to shows and you know, enrolling them in classes that'll help them get the next level. And I think that connects with veterans as well. Can you talk on that, Rolanda, really quick? What is the goal? And maybe you'll talk about this, but the goal, I'm assuming, when they come out is to start a career path for themselves. And they're looking for a company to help them do that and to grow and to learn. Is that correct?
Yes. And Kristyne, you can help me answer this question as well. But, you know, when you're coming out the military, you want a job and you're hoping that when you get to this organization, you can stay there for a while. We're spoiled. So we're used to walking into a unit and there is a battle buddy, there's the chain of command, you know, you're going to get some form of professional development. We're already looking for our career path laid out as it is in that unit. So when we show up, we're looking for the same things when we go to a company, and it helps that organization put some type of effort into that. And we're not asking for like promotion tomorrow. We just want to know what right looks like and how do I get there? Kristyne, what do you think?
Absolutely spot on. You know, one of the things about the military community is you're with these people a lot. They become like family. You feel like you're a part of something. And so a hard thing that veterans struggle with when they're transitioning out of the military is like, I identified as this for so long, and now I have to figure out who I am without the military. Do I identify as just a veteran, or do I identify as a veteran and a father and a brother? You know, and so there's the struggling of finding that purpose and that dedication that you had when you're in the service.
I think that's why company culture and that family environment you're creating at your job is a great way to bring them into your family, if you will, and make them feel like they have a support system around them. And like a battle buddy could be a mentor, and that could be you or someone else in your organization to become a mentor for them, to help them. And that's part of that whole professional development process I was speaking about. That's a way for you to connect with them and bring them into this environment that really supports them when they're missing on that kind of battle buddy or, you know, that family environment that was created in a unit. So I think that's important. I also think it's important to share stories. You know, storytelling is the new social media now. Everybody's telling stories on social media, and the more vulnerable and authentic you are in social media, the more it's watched. So if you have someone in your company who is a veteran, who has great things to say about your company, I think that's a great way to connect with other veterans by posting that out there and putting it out there. Or if you're supporting the military community in any way, I think it's also important to share that, because I think that's another way that when people are out there looking at your company, if they want to see, you know, to find out if they really want to work for you, then they are seeing the kinds of things you're posting out there that show your company culture and show the family environment and show this cohesive unit, if you will, that supports each other and acknowledges each other. I think that's important. And then following best practices, you guys, and I'm going to say this, and I've said this on many other webinars that I've done in the past, and it's so important that you are updating your website. And I know you guys, it's kind of a necessary evil for a lot of people. They're just like, they're not a fan of it. They don't want to do it. I get it. But it's almost like your calling card now. It's just like the yellow pages used to be back in the day. That's your website. So if you're not updating your website, if you are not following best practices, if you are not putting a reason for people to want to stay there and to look at you, and believe it or not, people go to the About Us page. It's probably the #2 most visited page on your website is the About Us page. So the reason people are going to that page is because they want to know about you. They want to know who you are. They want to know what you stand for. And so it's really important to have photos, even a video if you want, and to be posting this. And again, when veterans are out looking at who you are, then that has to be updated and look good. I say this over and over again. So if you need help doing that, you can always contact me at the end of the presentation. There is my email address will be there where you can contact me. But it's very important to do that. And the same with social media. You don't have to be on 18 different platforms on social media. You can focus on 1 or 2, no problem there. But if you're going to do that, you need to be consistent and you need to have similar branding to your website, and you have to have the same type of connection to your audience by showing who you are, by communicating your brand, by talking about sharing stories of people that work for you or of customers, even anything that really shows who you are, why you're in business, why you do what you do. That is so important. And I think that would connect very well to the veteran community. And that's something that you should focus on. And again, I can help you if you need help. And I also want to share, I was going to say this in regards to Watershape University. Grant Smith was former Marine who, after service, started in the pool industry, was a big time pool builder in California. He became an IWI for Watershape University. IWI is International Watershape Institute. And that's a member. After you take so many courses with Watershape University, you become an IWI. And he was an IWI. He was a leader in the company. He taught classes, was part of the community, and died last year very suddenly as part of right during the Pool Spa Patio Expo, which happens in about 3 weeks. So we have it. So Watershape University now has a grant in his honor. It's called Grant's Grant. They have actually already awarded it for this year, but they haven't announced it yet. They're going to be announcing it, I believe, on Veterans Day, which is the 11th of November. And this will allow people that either are in the military or are out and now, are potentially working for one of you. If you've hired someone, they can submit to get some free education through through Watershape University, and the education at Watershape University is really, really great. I've been in this industry, almost 20 years and have been on the education side of it. And it's top-notch education. I'm not just saying that. I wouldn't work for them if I didn't believe in it. And it's very good education. So that's something that's available as well. And you can learn more at watershape.org, or you can call or email. They'll let you know what's going on there. I keep hitting the wrong button, you guys. That's why it keeps going bigger. So Kristyne, I'll let you move on with the recruiting side of it, because now that for the marketing side of it, how do you get your information out there to try to connect with the community? And then once you get to that point of wanting to start recruiting, then you can tell us how that works and how we can be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. So it looks like there might have been a small mix-up with some of the slides, but that's okay. So recruiting or recruiting and how to find that military talent is where I'm going to start. Oh, okay. And there's a lot of resources available near military bases. So we're going to start there. So you have the TAPS office, which is a transitioning, kind of like a class that veterans go through before they become veterans. So while they're still active duty service members, even some like AGR members and reserve members will go through a TAPS class. But it's where there's instructors who they kind of take the service members through a little course, but you can get involved in those TAPS programs and you can hand out flyers, business cards. You can sometimes be a guest speaker or just connect with the TAPS officer, and they can send you a list of veterans that are getting out there. So I would start, if you live near a military base, definitely get in touch with the TAPS office and see how you guys could work together. You also have websites like LinkedIn and other like veteran oriented hiring websites that you could reach out to. there's every county has a veteran service officer. And depending on the size of the county, they might have more than one officer, but those are services that are free to the veteran. And you can, as a company, you can call that veteran service office and you can ask, like, do you guys have a job board or a job binder, or do you have an online job board where you can post a job that veterans are searching for? There's offices like the American Legion, the VFW, and so many other like local nonprofits and national nonprofits. They are always trying to find ways to help veterans get jobs. There's a need for that connection, and there's no shortage of people who are trying to help build that connection. So again, the nonprofits are a really, really big one, and the veteran service officers are really huge. Each state also has
Do they just do a search there, Kristyne, for that? How do they find the veterans? What'd you say what was called? I'm sorry.
The veteran service office. So you can, like, for example, like if I wanted to contact the Charleston County Veteran Service Office, I would just type Charleston County VA. And then when you see that, you'll see like the VA hospital, you'll see like other things, but just look for the one that says service office or like veteran services. They can even specify VSO office near me and contact them that way. And every state also has a transition assistance advisor. Now, those are typically reserved for the National Guard members, but it's their job to know all the resources in that state for veterans. So even if they primarily focus on National Guard, they're still a really great resource for an employer because they usually send out newsletters and blasts. They're usually tied into any networking events or job fairs that are going on. So that's a really good person to know in your state. And then again, focusing on like military or veteran focused networks. So meetups, there's veteran centric meetups that you can go to or other networking events that you can find on Eventbrite. And those are going to be local, online, all over. So definitely check out those as well for recruiting. And then we're going to move on to understanding the challenges for recruiting veterans and for hiring veterans. So we've definitely touched on a few of them earlier on. But I'm just going to re-emphasize some of those things. So veterans are very mission-oriented and purpose-driven. And when you get out of the service, like we said earlier, they often struggle with self-identity. And so finding fulfilling work is really helpful for that because they can help with that transition and make it easier for them and their families.
So this is the one you were on and I didn't put your information in there, Kristyne. Is that wrong? Do we do it wrong?
Yeah, so the slide I sent you, I had the bullets, where to find military talent, understanding their challenges, and hiring veterans. The points you have on this slide were for Rolanda.
I'm sorry about that. I even checked it twice. My bad. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. So one of the things when you're interviewing a veteran, if they appear to be closed off, it's mostly, we sometimes have a hard time speaking about ourselves because for so long it's been about the team and what we have accomplished, not what I can do for you, but what we as a team can do. So, having just like continuing to have that conversation, and the more comfortable they get being in that interview, the more that they're going to open up. So don't be afraid to ask questions, especially if you're looking at their resume and there's an abbreviation or a word you don't understand. Like, don't be afraid to ask questions. That leads right into demilitarizing a resume is a very difficult task sometimes, especially if they've been in for a long time, because their resume, if they try to put everything that they did on there, it's going to be 20 pages long. We wear many hats. So I was a paralegal, but I cross-trained as an HR and I was in an MP unit. So I also did MP training, and just the list goes on and on and on. So for a veteran to demilitarize their resume or to shorten it because they're proud of everything that they've done and they want you to know all the skills that they can bring, that can be very difficult for them as well. So just, ask those questions. If you have a veteran that's on staff, bring them into the interview. They can help bridge that gap between your company language and the veteran's language, or even show them the resume beforehand if they're not available to come to that interview. But if you have a veteran on staff, definitely use them as a resource. And again, it ties back into what we said earlier, like we know if you're not really veteran friendly. So if you do have that veteran on staff and you're introducing them to another veteran, that goes to show like that you are serious about hiring those veterans, that you do care. So that's a big win in your pocket if you already have one. And then something to keep in mind is they get base pay and housing pay. So if they have an unrealistic expectation of their salary, that's probably why. There is a lot of training that goes into teaching veterans that they're not going to get both of those incomes, right? They're just going to have that base. But sometimes they miss it, or, they might still have a little bit of unrealistic expectation for that. And also that we don't know how to negotiate pay or benefits in the military. It's how long have you been in? What's your pay grade? Are you in a danger zone? And then it is what it is. There's no negotiating. So be gentle with veterans when it comes to negotiating salary and benefits. And if there's if you know somebody who could help them with that, that would be great too. And then something that's really underrated, but I actually heard in a different webinar that I was attending, and I was like, wow, that's something that's really underrated, but sometimes they might have a hard time going by their first name. So if they just got out and you said their first name and they don't respond, it's not personal, try using their last name.
I would never even think of that.
Right. That's what I'm saying. When this person brought it up, I said, oh man, that's so true. Like when I came home on R&R one time, my best friend called me by my first name, didn't even budge, no flinch, nothing. I just kept going on with my business. And then she called my last name and I turned around, I was like, she goes, I've been yelling your name. I'm so sorry.
Our first name is our rank and our last name is our surname. So it might be like Staff Sergeant Sumner or, even their maiden name if you knew them, like Smith. But yeah, what's the first name? Our parents named us something different? No.
Right. And then that goes right into hiring a veteran. So, it's important to know when you're hiring a veteran, you're going to get somebody who's going to do the best that they can do. Whatever their 100% is, they're going to give you their 100%. A lot of employers come back to me and they say, I love hiring veterans because I ask them to do something or I give them a task and they find a way to get it done. It doesn't matter what I task them with, they find a way to do it. And I feel like that's pretty across the board. We're, like we said, mission oriented. You give us something to do and we're gonna get it done. So, and then I already touched on the language and not to being afraid of asking them questions. But something that you can do to help show veterans that you're veteran friendly, even if you don't have a veteran on staff, is that SHRM has an Veterans at Work certification. So if you are feeling so inclined, you can sign up for that and then you can put that certification on your website, or even, tie it back into your marketing campaign and post it on LinkedIn or Facebook, whatever it is, whatever social media you use.
What was the company again?
SHRM. So it's the Human Resources.
Sure. So SHRM.
Yeah. And you can just Google like SHRM veteran certificate and it'll pop up.
Got it. Okay.
And then the next thing you're going to want to Google is SkillBridge. SkillBridge, if you're not familiar, it's kind of like an apprentice program. And so you would partner with somebody who's on their way out of service and do the training, and then they would work for you.
Nice.
So
Okay.
if that's something that your company can provide, that's something that I would recommend looking into. And again, you could just Google SkillBridge. It's a DoD program, so you'll see DoD SkillBridge, but it's always like the first one to pop up. Some resources that you can use when you're trying to compare a veteran resume to a civilian resume, or a veteran job to a military job to a civilian job, are websites like ONET and Career One. They, if you put in the title or the rank and the job of that veteran or of that job, it will translate it into civilian skills for you. And you can see the correlation between those two jobs if you're having a hard time understanding somebody's experience.
What was that? What was that website again?
There's ONET.
Oh,
so it's an O and then like an asterisk and then NET. And then the other one is Career One. And then I would also recommend to do situational based interviewing versus behavioral based interviewing. Veterans can tell you about situations that they've been in, how it started, what happened, what did I do, what did they do? They can tell you about situations all day. And that's usually going to be an easier way for a veteran to express themselves and their history and what you're looking for than a behavioral type question. So that's something that I would recommend doing as well. And then a huge thing is to be communicative. So if they're going to do an in-person interview, like let them know where they need to park if there's a certain parking spot, or where they're not supposed to park. Let them know what door they need to go in if there's multiple entrances. If if they come on board, let them know about what the work attire is. Do they need to be there early? Who do they report to? If it's a Zoom call, or if it's like a video conference call, let them know if it's going to be like Zoom, Teams, or something, because they may not have it and they might need to download it. And that's, really, those are the key features or the key things that I would recommend implementing if it's not something that you already do.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, Rolanda, it looks like you sent those links just to the panelists, just the two of us. Can you resend those to the whole group?
I sure can.
That would be great. I was going to ask you, Kristyne, so in regards to the marketing, we talked about the marketing stuff. So based on what you're saying, things that work well in an actual interview, how would you then connect, just so we can kind of bring that full circle, how would you then connect, from the marketing side when you're actually putting yourself out there? Like, for instance, if, there are other words or there are things you can do from the marketing side of it when you're trying to find the right people to come to you, or you're trying to go, how can they, you know what I'm saying? How can you connect with veterans from the marketing side of it?
Yeah, so I would think about military keywords. So like if you think about things that, integrity, honor, self-discipline, mission oriented, I would think about like military, go look up each branch's like motto and like pull keywords from those mottos. And I would think that's a good way to implement some military language into your marketing plan.
Got it. That makes sense. Okay, perfect. And I know you are busy entering links in there, Rolanda, but I'll let you do that. You can also stop if you wanted to start and get boarding on. And I don't know how I copied Rolanda stuff into your slide, Kristyne, so I apologize for doing that. Some of the resources you recommended are fantastic, and those seems like they'd be very, very helpful in trying to engage with this community.
Thank you so much, Rolanda, for putting those into the chat.
No
I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and I'll keep doing it before it's all done. You'll have all of.
Yes, that would be great. And I can share those when I post the video later. I'll make sure that those are shared in the body of the text on YouTube. I'll make sure that those links are also on there for people so that they can link directly to it. That would be something that would be useful for them, but I appreciate that. So now we're going to move on to, really, if you've recruited somebody at this point and you have a veteran working for you, and Rolanda is really going to just talk about the retention side of it, because that's, again, not just for military, it's so important in general for all employees, and especially in an industry like this where you have a lot of competition and someone can easily move over to another, to a competitor or start their own business. So it really makes a lot more sense here as well. So go for it, Rolanda.
Hi, so there are some things. First of all, I want to tell you the cost of not getting engagement and retention right. And this is regardless if it's a veteran or if it's a civilian, this is anybody. If you hire someone and they leave before their first anniversary, you've lost a third of their income, right? So if your average wage is $30,000 a year, and that's including like $30,000. It includes like all of the HR fees that they have to pay that the employee is not getting, the insurances, all that stuff. When they leave before their first anniversary, you're losing $10,000. It's flushing down the drain. You don't think of that as a lot until you start getting 2 and 3 and 4 people. And before you know it, by the end of the year, you lost $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. Because that person left before their anniversary. That also includes the effort and the time and the manpower that it goes into trying to find their replacement, trying to train them, and all of the different recruiting and retention efforts you have to make that replacement. Now, imagine if that person was a leader. They get paid more money, and the higher you go up the pyramid, the stiffer and more robust your compensation packet is. So if you're thinking, well, my organization's $1 million and $10,000 is not that big, imagine losing a manager who's making $60,000 or $70,000. Imagine losing a senior leader who's making six figures. It becomes a lot more prominent. Somebody can walk out the door with $30,000 because they made $100,000 a year and you didn't retain them within their first year. So I'm going to talk to you about different ways that you can engage and retain your new hires, your new hire veterans, whoever you have on your team, as well as improve your retention and engagement with the people you already have. Okay. If you can go to the next slide. We're going to first talking about onboarding for small businesses on a small budget. Onboarding really starts when you are recruiting them. It's how you interview them. If you're prepared, it's how you talk to them. And then by the time you send them the offer letter, or you call them up and say, hey, you got the job, this is how much you're going to get paid, they've already started to develop an expectation of how you're going to behave and what you're going to do. So when someone comes on board, you need to be organized. I don't know how many times my husband's a service worker. He's been in extermination for years. I don't know how many times he's come home from a new job. And he's like, babe, I need you to finish this paperwork for me. And there is his W-4, his direct deposit, and all of his paperwork. Now, if you're a business owner, or if you work in an office, you're not HR, but you work in an office, you know how to fill out the paperwork, you're making the assumption that that new hire knows what to do. And for them, it's Chinese. Right. So my husband knows I'm good at paperwork. I did HR. He's like, here, do it for me. And I'm annoyed because I know this has to be done in person. So one of the things you definitely want to do is create a detailed plan and process to fully bring on your new hire, especially if they're a veteran, because like I said, we are spoiled. We're used to a process. We're used to walking in and here's your packet, here's your battle buddy, here's the chain of command, and this is your first training, here's your career plan. So if you want to grab our attention, you need to be organized. And it does, again, this is for a small budget. This costs nothing to get organized, right? Sit down with the people in your organization and ask them, like, what could I have done to make your onboarding better? And they will start rattling off things that they wish they had. Oh, I wish somebody would help me with the paperwork. I wish somebody would have, have my shirt ready. Simple things that we take for granted is going to really pay dividends. So if they wear a uniform and they need to have their uniform embroidered, give them a regular uniform shirt and a name tag until their embroidered shirt comes in. Even if you need to wait the 90 days to make sure they're a good fit, you can make a name tag. They don't cost anything.
Right.
And that makes them feel like they actually belong to the team, because you're like, here's your shirt, here's your first day. If you don't want them to wear jeans, you want them to wear khakis or some other type of pants, tell them before they start. In the military, we call it a packing list. Here's your packing list. Bet not have anything missing. The same thing is for any employee, especially veterans. Tell us what we need to have ready before we show up. If we know we need our social security card, our driver's license, and our kids' blood sample, we're going to have it ready. Okay. Make sure if they have a computer, passwords, anything like that, that it's ready. Okay. I've showed up to jobs and I didn't have my cell phone. I didn't have a computer. I didn't have anything ready. And I was really disappointed. The other thing is assign them a battle buddy. Someone who can say, listen, you're going to take my hand. We're going to be best friends for 90 days. Okay. You're going to eat what I eat, meet who I meet. You're going to go where I go. And they need to be in contact. That battle buddy is now responsible for the new hire understanding everything that goes on. And this is a leadership development opportunity for your people. You don't have to wait until they're high potential and ready for promotion to start leadership. In the military, we start leadership in basic training. Guess what? You're the platoon sergeant. You don't know anything about a platoon. And, you're so used to being every man for himself in high school. So now someone's telling you you're responsible for everybody. You're a little annoyed, but you catch on quick. The same thing is true. This is a leadership opportunity for anybody in your organization. Guess what? You're responsible for this person. And then you teach them and you share with them what that responsibility includes and what it looks like. Praise them when they do a good job and reprimand them in private when they don't do a good job, and then tell them how to do it right. Let's go on to the next slide, please. Camaraderie. When you have conversations, again, in the onboarding process, you want to get to know them, okay? We're nosy in the military, so we need to know, like, when your kid's birthday is your grandmama sick? Does everybody have food in the kitchen? Did your wife get child support? Our soft skills are really intrusive. So if you can't make it to work, we're in a car picking you up. If you can't make it to the doctor, we're taking you to the doctor. If you don't have your medication, we are picking it up for you. I don't expect a traditional 9-to-5 job to do that. But what will help is if you sit down and you ask open-ended questions. These are questions that start with who, what, when, where, why, and how. And that will get your veteran to talk more about what their thoughts are, more about their values, more about what matters to them. And this is for anybody. If you want to keep your people, you need to understand what motivates them on an individual level and on a group level. So not everybody's motivated by money. Throwing money at them, some people be like, you keep paying me more, and that's not what I want. Like, I'm going to take it, I'm going to spend it. That's not important to me. What I need is more time off. What I need is you to talk to me with respect and dignity. So the only way you're going to understand that is have conversations that are open-ended, and you ask them what is important to you, not your service, but what's important to you. Get to know them and their values and what's important, so that you can find ways to offer it to them in your organization. And it doesn't have to cost a lot, but it does help you tailor rewards for them. Okay. Acknowledge, validate, and normalize their feelings. This is important. It's a coaching trick that works for everybody. When you acknowledge, validate, and normalize a person's feelings, they feel heard. And when someone feels heard, they start to build that connection with you. They start to trust you a little bit more and get closer to you. So veterans, non-veterans, we need to understand that you hear us when we tell you something. Even if you don't do anything, like, even if you're like, listen, this is never going to change. You heard me though, right? Okay, great. So we need to understand that you hear us. And to do that, you don't have to agree to acknowledge, validate, or normalize. You just have to say, it makes sense that you feel this way. Anybody would feel this way because of these X, Y, and Z reasons. You didn't say, I agree. When you do that, they feel heard, and now you're starting to build trust because you're listening to them. Use inclusive leadership to bring new hires closer to the organization. So what inclusion means, let's not get diversity and inclusion mixed up, because we oftentimes take the whole acronym and mash it all together. Inclusion says that we are going to make every member of the team feel like they are a part of our family. So if you need a solution, okay, you're like, listen, we have a problem, go to your team, say, here's a sticky note, everybody gets the same color, write down your solution, turn around and stick that solution on the wall. And then let's go over each solution. Nobody feels pointed out that and felt like their solution was dumb. And it makes it hard to click up on someone when they do provide a solution that is okay. Everybody gets a chance to be heard. You might actually get a diverse perspective for that solution that you've never thought about. Another thing you can do is, have conversations in the morning before you have your meeting and ask everybody how their weekend was. How was your weekend? What's going on with your kids? Just so they can get to feel like the family and you included them in the conversation. There's always going to be somebody in the group who is like, no, I don't want to talk, invite them in. Slowly get them into that conversation. Holidays are coming
Love
up.
that.
Holidays are coming up. So not everybody is a Christian. We have Muslims, we have Buddhists, we have people who are agnostic. So instead of saying Merry Christmas, naturally we could say Happy Holidays, but you can also invite everybody to talk about why that particular time of the year is special to them. We live in a Christian state, so many people take their religion and they kind of, fix it a little bit so it can fit in to what our practices are. So find out why it's important. They might say, well, I'm Jewish and we don't do the Christmas tree, but this is what we do instead. And this is why it's important, because when I was little, blah, blah, blah. It gives everybody an opportunity to share and learn a little bit about each other in a safe space. Can I get the next slide, please?
Of course.
And providing professional and leadership development at the lowest level. Let me tell you how important it is for us to get continuous professional development. I was speaking to a group of corporate leaders, and somebody rose their hand and they said, well, what if, they want to get promoted right away? Because they heard me talk about providing professional leadership development. And I shared with them that the offering professional and leadership development at the lowest level is not about getting promoted. It's about making sure your staff is at their peak performance. And it's also motivating them to learn about a topic deeper. This is what the military has done for us. You're a private, you're sitting around twiddling your thumbs, picking your nose, and your leader comes up to you and says, here's a book. I need you to go to chapter 3. You're going to learn it and teach it this afternoon. You know that you're going to flip through that book and learn everything you need to learn because you don't want to be in push-up position. You're going to learn. We're not going to do push-ups in the real world. But what you can do is give every single person, regardless of what their level is, an opportunity to really learn a topic, regardless if it's a tiny little topic or a big topic, and teach it to their peers. That is professional development. It costs you $0 and 0 cents. For leadership development, you can assign people with different tasks. Like you might have somebody who's a safety officer. They make sure the fire extinguishers are up to date. They make sure that the mats are dry. You might have somebody who's in charge of making sure the vehicles are in order. We called it PCMS, where you go to the vehicle and you make sure that it had gas and it was able to function. You can have somebody do something similar to that. It's leadership development because now you're in charge of making sure that everything needs to be in order. You're in charge of making sure that that investment that the company made is right, that people are going to take it seriously. Are you in charge of people? Not necessarily. You might have to go to them and say, hey, I saw a demerit. I saw you had a flat tire or something and fix it. But that's giving them leadership. It's giving them responsibility. And to sweeten the deal, you tell them how much it cost. By you doing this, you are saving the organization X, Y, and Z dollars from insurance claims. Somebody's not going to die today because of you. And I think it was Lauren, she brought up Toastmasters. Toastmasters is a great investment. I did Toastmasters for a couple of years. It's like $80 a year. You guys can definitely afford it. And you send your people there and they learn how to publicly speak in a way that's authentic to them in a professional manner. And they also get the opportunity to lead projects, small things, to be an MC, to come up with presentations. They have vast levels of different types of work you can do. You meet once a week Once a week, you give a speech, and they start off slow and steady. And as you get more comfortable, the stakes get a little bit higher. I've won awards because I was a good moderator. So, and you can take the last page of each book and say, here, this is what I've done so far. And give them credit for that. Make that part of their leadership development. What did it cost you? $80.
We used to host a meeting at our office at the National Swimming Pool Foundation. We used to host a meeting in our kind of community room, and we paid for any of our staff to take it. We paid for their fee, and then if they got their first level, like competent communicator or competent leader or whatever, then they were compensated for that. So it was something that was actually really, and if somebody was going to give a speech, the rest of the staff would show up to the meeting and support them. It was a good way to provide that development, and Toastmasters is great.
Yes, they're gentle, they're not gonna, they foster an environment for learning and development. Yep. And if you say you want to be a good leader, a better leader, okay, we're going to give you every opportunity to do so. The last thing, which is you're going to love, is delegating minor tasks to other people. So if you have somebody that you're like, listen, I would promote them if I had another position, give them something off of your plate. As business owners, we have entirely too much on our plate because we are control freaks and we want to make sure everything is done right. But if you say, here, this is something minor, if you messed it up, we can work on you doing it better. Here you go. That means you got more time on your plate to do something that you need to get done, like sales, business development, networking. So as you get bigger, you're going to need to delegate some of that task. If you're overwhelmed right now, you're like, listen, I wanted to make it this hour. I'm so glad I made it, but man, oh man, is it going to set me back? You need to look at what's on your plate and then decide what you can delegate to the person underneath you. And then teach them how to, if they get overwhelmed, teach them how to delegate it down. This is perfect leadership development because it teaches them to trust other people to do a task to completion, and it teaches them to train them to help fill in skill gaps.
Yes, I love that. Was that your last slide, Rolande?
Yes, that was it.
Thank you. So those were both of you guys. These were really great tips. I really appreciate you doing this because I think it's going to help the people in this industry to be able to, access this community of potential hires, which are going to be great. I mean, I think that the fit is really good for this particular industry and veterans coming out. So I really appreciate you guys doing that. This is the upcoming events I spoke about at the beginning, which these are all the shows, the dates and the shows that we're going to be at Watershed University in the next 5 months. There's a lot of education going to be presented here. So make sure you go to those websites. I just posted on Facebook yesterday and on Instagram links to those particular pages if you want to go check them out. Feel free to do that. And we will be there. I'll be at many of these, so I'll see many of you there. And then again, I just wanted to thank the corporate engagement team. Again, without them, we would have a hard time doing what we do. And we just took a California trip where we went to 4 different facilities as part of our education. We had a class and then we go on a field trip and learn about the products. And that was a great way for the students that were taking the class to be able to see hands-on. And it was really wonderful thing to do. So hopefully we'll do that in the future and you can be a part of it. So we don't know how many people we have on here. I want to see if there's any Q&A. Is there anything that came up for you, Kristyne or Rolande, when we spoke that you have a comment or a question while I'm looking at the chat here? Anything?
Go ahead, Kristyne.
I was just going to double down on what Rolande was saying in the beginning of her portion, where you can really lose a lot of profit if you don't onboard somebody the proper way, or if you're not giving them those opportunities to grow into leadership positions or to learn something. It's so important when you're doing that interview process to lay out expectations on both ends. Like, what are they expecting? What are you expecting? To make sure that you are bringing on the right people for the role.
Yes.
And that's why it's so great to have all these resources available so that you can take those extra steps to do the best that you can do to make sure you're bringing on the right people for the right role.
Absolutely. The Western show this year in Long Beach in March, I was answering phones. I was kind of volunteering for the show as well. And I was answering phones, and one of the guys wanted to know if the parking had increased. It went from $5 to $10, something like that. And because of that, I said, yes, it's $10 now. And because of that, he was not going to bring his team to the conference to learn because it was $10 for parking. And I thought to myself, this is a company I would not want to work for, because he can't spend $10 to bring a carload of his team to the conference. So just like, that's a perfect example of what not to do, folks. Don't do that.
Yeah. Don't be cheap.
That person.
One thing I wanted to add was also look for values. Does your recruits' values match your organization's?
Absolutely.
It takes a little bit longer. So now you're looking at the masses, and then you're trying to narrow it down to veterans, and then you're trying to narrow it down by values. But it's worth it. There are scientific studies that show that when your employees' values complement or match your organization's values, they're happier, you're happier, and they stay longer. And as we approach the recession, it will be harder to give people large raises or promote people because your finances are going to be tight. So you need to find other ways to motivate them to work hard. And when you bring somebody in who has complementing or the same values, they want to stay because they like you as people.
Yeah, absolutely. So important. And that's the part I was talking about, how you're representing yourself online and through all the, the internet and all that. It's so important that you're putting that out there. What are your values? What is your company culture? How do you treat your employees? All those things are so important because that, that is marketing. Your website is a marketing tool. It's a sales tool, if you will. And that is something that you should be dang sure that your website really represents you well in that way, because anybody that's potentially thinking about coming to work for you is looking at your website. I guarantee it. And they're looking at your social media. They're looking at the kinds of things that you're posting. And if you're posting stuff that's crass or not professional and it's not showing your true values, those people aren't going to come work for you. And that's just the truth. That's really important. So thank you for bringing that up. I don't think we have any additional questions. It'll be interesting. If there's email addresses there for all three of us. If you want to ask specific questions, feel free to send an email. Otherwise, feel free just to comment below. If this is going to be on YouTube and potentially share it on social media, if you have a question, feel free to type it in and we'll get the answer. If I don't know it, or if I can't answer it myself based on what I heard today, I'll connect with Rolanda or Kristyne and we'll get an answer to the question. And I will post the links that Kristyne shared, all those great tools and resources she shared. I'm going to post those on the YouTube channel in the body of that description to make sure that you guys have access to those and anything else that you might need. I really, truly hope this helped you today. I hope that you are able to connect with this community, and I hope that you were able to find some folks to hire next year whenever you're planning on doing it, because I think what you're trying to do and the demand that we have in this industry is great. We'll see how long it lasts, like Rolanda said, with recession coming, but I'm just wishing you much success and happy hiring, and keeping your employees happy is so important. So thank you. And thank you, Rolanda, and thank you, Kristyne, for sharing this today. I think it was very helpful.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
What'd you say, Kristyne?
Oh, I said absolutely glad to be here.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.